I was 7 years old and we moved to the US in early January of 2008. It was like being on like another planet because everyone was speaking a language that I couldn't understand, not a single word. Like the only two like words in my vocabulary was yes and no. What motivated me in school was the efforts that my family was putting forward towards our life in America. Like my parents were working, my older brother was also in school, and I guess I was doing my part, but looking back on it, I knew inside of me like this is like my life now, and whatever I make of it is gonna be the life that I will have for me and my family in the future. The person whom I deem to be the force of good within my life is my father, Lwel, because he is the kind of person who puts others before himself. My father is of the Granite ethnicity in Myanmar, and he was born in a poverty-stricken village in the outskirts of Myanmar. And for the most of his life, he grew up working day in and day out on a small farm that the family owned, tending to the crops and cattle. Being one of the eldest in his family, a lot of responsibility was placed onto his shoulder at a young age, yet he realized what he needed to do in order to take care of his younger siblings and his parents, all the while trying to get an education. At the time, Myanmar was in the midst of a civil war, a war that began when the Burmese regime military carried out an ethnic cleansing against the minor ethnicities of Myanmar. And when they invaded my father's village, he fled with his family in the middle of the night, under the sound of gunfire and screams. The only belongings they had after were the clothing they wore as they ran and the sacks they carried on their shoulder. In the end, they were able to find refuge in a refugee camp in Thailand, and my father's story became a part of my own. Growing up in the refugee camp near the border of Thailand and Myanmar, and experiencing firsthand the poverty, the sickness, and the life that would have been full of limitations, felt like being trapped in a cage. At school, I wasn't taught how to read and write for myself. Instead, I was taught how to write and read what was given to me. I was taught to read and write what was assigned or what was on the chalkboard of that day. So, I became blinded and one-sided, living life inside a limited space. I became a slave to the isolation, the ignorance, and the cage. For many years, I grew up living a false childhood, unknowingly changed down by the place I called home for so long. My father knew that life in a refugee camp would not be living at all, but instead, it would be surviving from one day to another. He wanted me and my brother to live a full life with opportunities and freedom, and so he did everything in his power to get his family out of the refugee camp. He worked hard day in and day out, searching and searching. Every night, with a determined and hopeful expression, he would pray for me and my brother. And when the chance finally came, without hesitation, he left the life that he knew behind, because his family's future was first priority. All throughout my childhood, my father has always tried to be the best father figure he could be. He is the kind of man who puts his loved one above himself, and this character trait of his has really grown on me, and I hope to make him proud. In everything he does, he always considers how it will affect the people around him, and it has impacted me greatly. The education and life that I have now is all because of his sacrifices. Henceforth, the decisions that I make, I hope, will be actions that my father can be proud of. Thank you.